Hi everyone, Macsen here. Welcome to my Stellaris Let's Play. It's absolutely amazing to be saying that. I'm one of the lucky people who managed to get their hands on an early copy of Stellaris pre-release of Stellaris. Paradox were kind enough to send me a Steam code like many other YouTubers and Twitch users, I imagine, and the odd reviewer as well. So you can see down the bottom I'm not even using version 1 of the game. I've actually had the game for a few days now, and I've been playing the game like crazy, trying to prepare for a Let's Play. I couldn't show you any footage until now though. It's only now when the first embargo for the game is actually running out or ran out on the 5th of May. So by the time you're watching this, yeah, that embargo will have been lifted, and the full embargo is released also when the full game is released on the 9th of May. That's when you get your hands on it, should you wish to. So let's actually start a new game. Now in this first video I'm actually going to be concerning myself solely with empire setup and race setup. It's so crucial to the game, it's so important and interesting. I think it deserves a whole video to itself. So you can see here there are a number of races that you can actually select at game start. These are the default races, but picking one of these, to be honest, isn't all that fun. It's much more fun to actually create your own empire. And over the last few days I've been trying to figure out what empire I wanted to use for this Let's Play. So each of these has slightly different play styles. Some of you may have watched the Twitch streams that Paradox has been doing with the blog. So I wanted to play a race that played in a very different fashion to how they played it in. So the race that I've eventually come up with is the Order of the Holy Swarm. So in this first video I'm going to be discussing the choices that I've made with this race, and mentioning a bit about all of these things that you might want to know more about when you're deciding what options to select in your race setup for your games. Right, so let's actually edit this race so you can see things in more detail. So down the left hand side here you can see there are a number of options and categories. So the categories are species, homeworld, empire and ships. Let's start off with appearance. So there are a huge amount of animated portraits for you to choose from for your race. From a variety of different animal kingdoms, and even some that aren't from an animal kingdom, like the fungoids here. The scientific classifications for all of these different creatures within the game, to be honest, it probably doesn't make an awful lot of sense, since these are aliens. These are creatures from Earth, of course. Just because something looks mammalian and smells mammalian and talks mammalian doesn't mean it's actually a mammal. I kind of get why that Paradox actually decided to use these scientific classifications, though it does make sense to a certain degree. But yeah, there are tons of different portraits for you to choose from. I think one of them happens to be from a DLC, that one there, at least one of them. I'm not sure if they're going to add more portraits in future. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. This isn't, of course, the release version of the game, so there could be more on release potentially. There was another option here in the very early screenshot to the game, plants. Not sure what happened to that, if they're going to be in the game at some point. But yeah, they're not in my version of the game anyway. My version of the game should be almost identical to the release version of the game, but might not be on a couple of things. I'm not sure. There's no way for me to know at this point. Right, so the actual race that I decided to pick was one from the arthropods. So it's this ant type guy here. And if we go to the ruler part of the species category, you can see there's more options to actually change the portrait of the race you happen to select. So you can change the color, and for certain creatures you can actually change these other options here, but with this guy you can't actually. If I was to select a different pick here, like a reptile, and go back to here. You can see I can change the color. You still can't change phenotype or hairstyle. I don't think there are many different portraits that you can actually change the phenotype or hairstyle. Most of them have clothes and colors. The species, unsurprisingly, that has the most options is the humans. They can actually change the sex as well. I'm not sure if you can do that with the other races. Phenotype, hairstyle, yeah, they've got all different options, not surprisingly. So I believe that just about covers appearance and ruler. Let's take a look at these other options. So if I go back out and edit again, go to name, you can see the name of my race here is Form Asteridae. So basically, I've been reading a ton of Wikipedia, reading up on Greek and Latin, trying to figure out scientific classifications for certain species. Because this is an ant species, I believe in real life the species kingdom that ants belong to is the Formicidae. So it's based on that. And Asteri is Greek for star, like Stellaris is Latin for star, I believe. So these are the Formasteridae, and just happens to have master in the middle, the master being the queen of the hive, of course. Right, so I think that's a pretty clever name anyway. Plural and adjective, hopefully that's correct. The name lists next. Basically, Paradox has come up with a number of different name lists for leaders, ships, fleets, planets, and these are all related to the different scientific classifications of creatures within the game. You don't necessarily have to pick an arthropoid option for an arthropoid. You could pick, well, any of these options here. It's actually very easy to change names of certain things when you've actually started the game. So you can change the names of leaders, planets, fleets, ships within the game, even the name of your empire, which is amazing. But you can't actually, I believe, change the name list once you've entered the game. That's something that I wish you could do, but it's only a small thing. You can have a ship prefix as well, so all of my ships are going to start with FAS in front of them within the Let's Play. Next on the list is traits, but I'm actually going to come back to that. So the next category I'm going to cover is Homeworld. The Homeworld decision is arguably an important decision. Basically, it determines the type of planets that your creature is most at home on. Basically, each has a habitability rating, and you can't have a happiness higher than a habitability rating. It basically forms a cap for your happiness. So, in this circumstance, desert worlds are the types of planets that the Formasteridae most like to live on, but also tropical and arid worlds are quite hospitable to them. So basically the planet types that are one away from the selection you choose, you should be able to live on those with your race as well. So say, for example, if you were to pick Arctic, those two planet types would be quite hospitable, continental, those two. But further away from that, two away, so in this example with deserts, continental worlds and tundra worlds wouldn't be very hospitable to our creature type, and these would be basically impossible to colonize without crazy habitability bonuses picked up from the tech tree and various other sources like traits. So yeah, it's a pretty important decision, I guess. So you'll be looking out for certain planet types based on the planet you pick. But having said all that, there should in theory be an equal amount of each planet type within the game on any map that you decide to play as or play on. So yeah, from that point of view, it's not so important. The other options on the screen, homeworld name, you can actually randomize this. I've picked my own here though, so we're going to be starting on Alvus and Alveari, which I believe means hive in Latin, both of these. You can actually pick a starting solar system. I'm going to be using random, but you could, for example, start on the Sol system or the Deneb system. I believe that's the only options. City appearance, basically this determines the background of your planets. So in this option I wanted to pick the same as our creature type, so I've picked arthropoids. You could of course pick something entirely different though, should you wish. And it also, you can see here on the diplomatic screen, it forms the background here as well for that. Next up, let's discuss traits and empire, government and ethics. Government and ethics and traits are definitely the most important decisions when creating your empire and designing your race. Basically, they will help to determine how you play the game. They will create a certain playstyle based on the selections that you make. For example, if you were to pick passive, then you probably aren't going to be wanting to play in a warmonger type of style. And in fact, to a certain degree, you won't be able to, since it determines what policies you can actually choose within the game. So for example, if you were a pacifist, you can't pick to actually bombard enemies' planets to as great a degree as you could should you pick fanatic militarist. Now you've got 4 basic categories here. You've got Xenophile and Xenophobe, so the opposites, basically each is opposite these 4 different categories. You've got Materialist and Spiritualist, Militarist and Pacifist, and Collectivist and Individualist. You can see the options I've picked here. I've picked Spiritualist, Collectivist and Xenophile. So the race I wanted to create here is actually a slaver race. So they benefit from having slaves, and also they are going to be able to purge populations. So say for example there's a species on a planet that I don't like, they're causing me problems, I can decide to wipe that species out. I can xenocide, if that's a word. So yeah, that's a definite option that the blog didn't have in those Twitch streams that Paradox made. Also, we should be able to use immigration, which they didn't show off too much in those streams. Xenophile means that we will actually get along quite well with other races. So these are a friendly type of space ant species. Spiritualism will also give us happiness. Now each of these actually determines what events you can get within the game as well, and also certain technologies within the tech tree. That's something I don't know an awful lot about yet because, well, I've only been playing the game for a few days, but I'm sure we'll learn more about that during the course of Let's Play. The key word I would say when it comes to government and ethics and traits is synergy. You really want to be designing a race where all of these options work well together. So for the actual government, I've actually picked one that stresses slavery as well. So I've actually got a slavery tolerance of 100% with both of those options together. That means my population will not become unhappy should they be enslaved. I could have gone for fanatic collectivist instead of picking this government type and just have one pick in there, but I wanted my species to be a spiritualist as well. I haven't tried that out before. The happiness bonus that comes with it is also potentially pretty useful as well. Also, it opens up different government types. So you can pick, if you pick spiritualist, you can pick any along this row. I can't actually pick this one though because I have picked collectivist, so that prevents that decision. But I can have any 4 different government types, and you can actually change your government type within the game. This one wouldn't be too bad since we're slavers, for example. That gives you extra mineral and food output from slaves. Now with my traits, which are basically extra ways you can pick to make your species stand out, I've actually gone for the synergy route here as well. So since slaves basically give you lots of extra food and minerals, I wanted to pick a trait that helped with that. So I've picked the industrious trait, which gives 15% extra to minerals. you actually only get 2 points to start out, and you can pick up to 4 traits. But what this often means is that you have to pick a negative trait to actually pick more than actually just 1 or 2 traits. In fact, you have to pick a negative trait to be able to do that. So, in addition to Industrious, I actually picked a negative trait which was Decadent. Decadent basically means that you get less from resources if you don't have slaves on a planet. But since we're going to be using slaves as a key focus of my race, this isn't really going to be much of a downside at all. Basically it probably won't come into play ever, pretty much. So I get a free racial trait by picking this in effect, because we're definitely going to be wanting to have slaves with this race. Now, because I've picked that, I've actually got an extra point now, so I can pick another, pick among all of these different traits. And there's tons of options here. There's things that do, well, there's lots of different bonuses for making your population better. Or there's even empire-wide bonuses, for example, like giving your leaders extra longevity, extra lifespan. There was a couple of traits here that I found it hard to choose between. One of them was Strong. This would give extra bonus to minerals. Since we're definitely going for a very mineral focused population, that would have been particularly good. It also would have given extra army damage. We're definitely going to be seeing combat and number of conquering of planets during this Let's Play. That's certainly the aim, so that would have been good for that. But in the end, I decided to go for Charismatic. It actually increases diplomatic relations with other species. There's one other use with it as well, which I'm not sure about. It could potentially increase the happiness of other species that your creature lives with. It's something I haven't tested out, but yeah, I think that may be the case. So it would be very good to have a multicultural society by picking this, and that's my thoughts about why I've picked these options. The Empire name, the reason I've decided to call my Empire the Order of the Holy Swarm is because it brings together all of the racial picks and government picks, for example, that I've made. So, for example, my species are a type of space ant, so that explains swarm. For my government picks, they are holy because they are spiritualists, and also order because they're a hive, and collectivist. Actually, the game does a similar method of creating a name itself. If you use the randomized option, it actually will pick based on the options you've made already. For some reason it's not working when I click that. I'd probably have to create a whole new race to get that working again. Yeah, that's actually quite useful as well. Adjective, hopefully that's okay, so that's based on the race as well. For the other options, let's go to ruler first. I forgot to mention the name of our ruler. So this is Seren Matri, which basically means Star Mother or Star Queen. For the flag, this is when you get to pick this icon here. So I've picked something that looks a bit like them. The domination flags, I think, might be DLC, all of these. But you've got a huge variety of options. So you can come in here and make a number of picks. I'm not sure how many options altogether. There's probably at least 50. You can decide to make your logo, your flag look a bit different, and you can change the colors. There aren't massive amounts of colors, but there's enough certainly to create a huge amount of variety of options to have pretty much whatever you should desire. I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty easy to mod this as well. So the last of the important decisions when it comes to creating your species and empire are the ship options. First of all, the starting weapons. So basically, your starting weapons will determine what your early corvettes, for example, are armed with. You don't necessarily have to stick with that though. You can actually research something else within the tech tree. basically different departments within the research departments of the game focus on certain weapon types. I believe the missile weapons are covered under engineering, the energy weapons under physics. I'm not sure about projectile weapons, it might be engineering as well. So you could say start out with projectile weapons, but decide to research missile weapons or energy weapons, for example. Each of these weapon types are actually different in one way or another, and if you've played a space-based 4X game before, you'll be very familiar with this. Missile weapons are long range and easy to defend against potentially if you have point defense, but if you don't, then you could be in a lot of trouble. Projectile weapons are very good at taking down shields, but probably aren't so great against armor. But energy weapons are really good at taking out armor, but probably not so good against shields. So whichever one you decide to pick here arguably doesn't matter all that much. Having said that, there are some racial traits that actually give you a bonus in one scientific department over another. So that could be a reason to say, for example, if you have a racial trait that gives you a science boost towards engineering, natural engineers, then maybe going for missiles and possibly projectile weapons if they're in that group would be a good idea rather than energy weapons. But yeah, it's not a massive decision really what you decide to pick here. FTL method, or faster than light method, is basically how your ships will get around the map, and each of these has different implications based on which one you select. There are 3 different options, just like the weapons, so you can pick from warp travel, hyperspace travel, or wormhole travel, and the game actually mentions that warp travel is good for new players and wormhole travel is for more advanced players. Now I've played with each of these 3 different types of FTL method in the games I've played so far, and I'm going to be playing with wormholes. I'll mention a bit about each of these different options. So let's start off with hyperspace travel. Basically you can only move along predetermined paths with the hyperspace travel, the lanes basically. If you've watched my recent Master of Orion Conquer the Stars Let's Play on a channel, it's very similar to that. You get these lines between the stars and you can only travel along those lines. So it is very restrictive, but you can travel along those star lanes at increased speed, supposedly. And for each of these travel types there are actually further techs within the tech tree to improve upon them in one way or another. So I'd say hyperspace travel is the one that I prefer the least out of all of these options. Warp travel is basically you can travel pretty much wherever you want, but you do it very slowly. And there is a limitation on the distance between the stars that you can decide to jump from. If a star is a very long distance between another star that you want to get to, you might not necessarily be able to unless you've got extra research tech. But it's mentioned that it's very good for new players, it's very unrestrictive, just very slow. So it's a pretty good option. My favourite though is probably wormhole travel. So wormhole travel, the bonus is here. Basically what happens is it creates a wormhole between 2 different points. You have to create a wormhole generator though, that's a downside. And getting back to the bonuses, you can do this at quite long range, longer range than the warp travel allows you to. But there are downsides to wormhole travel. It takes time to make the generators, and also they are vulnerable to actually being attacked in combat. So there are definite downsides when it comes to wormhole travel, as there are downsides to all of these different FTL methods, to be honest. So the final option when it comes to creating your empire is totally cosmetic. It's the ship appearance. So you'll probably want to pick the option here that you happen to pick for your race, but not necessarily so, because you can't actually change the appearance or the colors of these. Your stuck with them. I believe that some of the Paradox mentioned maybe in a future patch or expansion they may actually add the option to change the colours of these ships, but I don't think it's going to be possible for the release version of the game. It's not in my version of the game, which is basically a release version almost. The option I've decided to pick is the arthropods, unsurprisingly, because we are arthropods. So that's it for this first video. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this basic guide to Empire and race creation, and also an introduction to my Order of the Holy Swarm race that you'll be seeing during the course of the Let's Play. The next video of the Let's Play basically starts the Let's Play proper. We'll be selecting the game details, which will take me a minute or less, and then we'll actually be playing the game proper. So hope you're looking forward to that. If you are, you may want to consider subscribing to the channel so you know when the video's out and future videos. If you have any comments or questions about this Let's Play, please fire away via the comment section. If you fancy giving this video a like, if you enjoyed it, I'd be really grateful if you were to do that. Thank you if you do decide to. And I should also mention I have a Patreon page. That's a way that people who like my videos can help to support the channel by making donations, whether one-off or once every month, small or large. It massively helps to keep me running the channel. I'm going to need more Patreons if I'm going to be doing this for the years to come. So I'm really grateful if you check out my Patreon page, and even more grateful if you decide to become a Patreon of mine. And I should also thank my existing Patrons. They've been a massive help. So thank you, patrons. Right, that basically ends this video. So once again, thanks for watching, and please check out the next video in the Let's Play.